So today what we're going to be covering is how we approach doing virtual live instruction and coaching. We thought it was important to bring some awareness to some of the options that are currently available and have actually been available for quite some time with respect to Disciplined Agile. So I'd like to start off first by having Scott cover a recent blog entry that he made on virtual conferencing tips.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So, I just wanted to point out that we've got a pretty good resource that you can use on your teams. If you're doing training or if you're just holding a normal video conferencing meeting. As you're probably running into, a lot of people are struggling with basic video conferencing protocols still. So anyway, check the article out. I think you'll like it. It's short and sweet. A lot of great tips, as you can see with this infographic, which is downloadable. You can share this with people. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say.
Great. Just an introduction about myself. I'm the founder of Process Mentors. We are a consultancy that is a PMI Disciplined Agile partner. We focus on doing assessments and training and coaching services with enabling organizations to get the value out of the Disciplined Agile toolkit. I am one of the certified Disciplined Agile coaches. I'm a certified Disciplined Agile instructor, and I'm a Disciplined Agile instructor trainer. I get the privilege of being able to train other CDAI candidates, which is something that I did virtually this week over the past 4 days. So again, one of the reasons why we wanted to put this webinar up is COVID-19 has changed how organizations are continuing to deliver value while keeping their employees safe. Lots of problems are being identified, potential solutions are being identified, solutions are being tested, and with Disciplined Agile's guided continuous improvement strategy, it's really an opportunity for Disciplined Agile to help organizations that were already thinking about moving in this direction, as well as a lot of the other organizations that have taken an approach that really is very strongly committed to co-location, which is something that Disciplined Agile obviously sees as a best practice that fits a lot of teams and a lot of organizations' circumstances. But Disciplined Agile also has options in it that recognize fully distributed teams. So you have options and support from existing expertise. Disciplined Agile has recognized that organizations have been working in a distributed structure for a very long period of time. And there's an incredible amount of existing expertise and experience in delivering virtual live instruction on training courses, as well as providing coaching services with teams. Right now we're seeing that initially, or at least what I've been seeing is initially there were a lot of other frameworks and training organizations that were going to be putting off all of their co-located training to keep their instructors and their students safe. And the original thought and a lot of the things that I see in LinkedIn forums were, well, we only do co-located training. We only want to focus on supporting co-located teams. And that's a real challenge for organizations, not only today, but every day moving forward until we kind of figure out what this new norm is going to be. So we've got proven techniques and tools that we've been using for years and years and years now. So this is not anything that's new to a lot of the partners that have been helping organizations with respect to training and the actual adoption of Disciplined Agile. So there are a lot of good options that are out there. The next thing is virtual live instruction. So virtual live instruction is not a webinar. So we are broadcasting this in a webinar format, but you'll see we're going to actually go through one of the modules in an actual Disciplined Agile Lean Scrum Master workshop where Scott and Louise and Pam are actually going to be part of the students, and you'll get to observe what we mean by virtual live instruction. Virtual live instruction is also not a recorded or an animated e-learning. So there are lots of offerings that are in the marketplace for various approaches in an agile way of working. Virtual live instruction is very different. It simulates being co-located. We're just doing it in a virtual environment. By now, most of everybody that's on this webinar has probably had experience with either Zoom or Microsoft Teams or WebEx or any of the other types of video conferencing platforms. That's what we've been using for a really long time, and we know how to do this effectively. Another thing from an option perspective is that we use a virtual collaboration canvas. So we're going to go into one of the platforms that we use where we can do all of the exercises that we would do when we're co-located physically in the same room delivering these workshops, but we're going to be doing it in a collaborative tool where everybody gets an opportunity to participate as well as still being on video. So the format. One of the things that we use is a main room. So very similar to what you're seeing right now is all the participants, all the students are in a main room, again, just like what we'd have in a training center or a conference room that we're using to do co-located training. To simulate having teams assembled at tables, we use breakout rooms. So we put all of the students onto the team into the breakout room, and then we provide them access to the virtual collaboration canvas. The instructor moves back and forth in between the rooms, answering questions, providing guidance, listening to the discussion that's going on, very similar to what we'd be doing walking around in a room. So this format of using a video conferencing platform combined with a collaboration canvas is something that is really, really effective from a learning perspective. The other thing that is really beneficial for what we'd consider open enrollment courses where we've got course offerings that anybody can sign up on, the amount of diversity in the students that attend from a global perspective. Just in the past couple of weeks, in every virtual live instruction workshop that I've delivered, I've had people that are literally around the world. This past week, I had 2 people from New Zealand. I had somebody from Hong Kong. I had somebody that was in the UK, somebody in Alaska, a few people that were across the United States, 1 in Canada, 3 in South American countries. So not only do you get an opportunity to still have training that you can attend or not have to put that off, but you really get an opportunity to interact with people that have very different experience and very different perspectives, which in itself is just extremely valuable. So the other thing that we also wanted to bring a lot of awareness to is we have a lot of instructors and a lot of partners that already do this as part of their way of working. But we're also mobilizing the entire Certified Disciplined Agile instructor community. So what we're doing is we are taking all of the lessons learned, all of our techniques, the tools that we use, how to set these platforms up, how to interact when you're doing virtual live instruction. It's very different to be sitting in front of a camera for 7.5 hours a day conducting training. So there's a lot of techniques that we found over a long period of time with a lot of students, as well as when we're working from a coaching perspective and just helping to mobilize teams and adopting their way of working and turning that into doing your way of working, that we're actually sharing with all of the other instructors so that we have lots of support that anybody that still needs training or still needs coaching is going to be able to tap into. And Scott, I know I'm doing a lot of the initial talking here, but by all means, if there's anything else that you can chime in with as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I apologize. I should have put this presentation in a little more context than I did. Joshua has been working with us for years and teaching and coaching disciplined agile stuff, and sometimes face-to-face, but a lot remote. We were lucky enough to have an organization that was international in scope and had people just completely dispersed around the globe. And over the last couple of years, Joshua was the prime on that engagement and learned the hard way how to do all this stuff that he's sharing with us now. So I definitely want to point that out. And this stuff works. There's a lot of, I appreciate a lot of us are still struggling to understand how to make this work, but Josh, in particular, Josh has been doing this for years. So like he says, this is absolutely proven. We know this works, and we've made it work. We've seen it work with a very wide range of people and cultures. So anyways, Joshua.
Yeah, so the opportunity that I was fortunate enough to be able to help support that Scott just mentioned, over the course of a couple of years, I worked with this large globally distributed company that I was able to train hundreds of people in the formal Disciplined Agile workshops. I'd say probably 3 times that many. I was able to provide mini trainings on Disciplined Agile. There was a lot of contractors, a lot of consultants that weren't going through the training that the company was providing. So we did a lot of additional non-certification based training on Disciplined Agile. And then I worked all the way through the enterprise level, the IT level, DevOps level, and down to the actual team level, providing coaching support, providing a lot of what you see in a center of excellence. And I did that all from where I'm sitting right here. In all that time period, and all the people that I interacted with, I never did it from any other place from where I'm sitting right now, which is, again, it's just a proven way to be able to deliver value and work in this fashion. So let's take a look and see how it works. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get into one of the workshops that we've got as part of the Disciplined Agile Lean Scrum Master approach. So I'm going into the Choose Your Way of Working, which is a 1-day module, a 1-day workshop as part of that 4-day offering. And I'm going to get into specifically one of the modules that is leading us into an exercise that we're just going to kind of begin. So you'll be able to see how this works, and I'll be providing a bit of context for what I already know that Scott and Louise and Pam have shared, because we would have already have spent an entire day together doing the foundations of Disciplined Agile. So we've got some context from those learnings. I've learned a little bit about each one of their situations, a little bit of the team that they're on at their organization, how their organization is approaching things. And so that's kind of the setup. So Louise, Pam, are you ready to come on camera, and we'll get on into
and Mark is joining us as well this morning.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so while Mark's joining, I'll give just a little bit more context. So I'm going to take you through the actual slide part of the material. Then I'm going to continue to share my screen. I'm going to get out of the instructional materials and share the virtual collaboration platform. And we'll be able to see Pam and Scott and Louise and Mark via their cursors moving around and hearing the type of discussion we would see as we're actually doing these exercises. So let's get into choosing your team's way of working. This is part of the 5-step approach. And this particular workshop has 2 very realistic scenarios from an exercise perspective that the learners get to go through. Key concepts for choosing your team's way of working. We lay out the 5 steps for choosing how to do this. Now, although you're going to see this is just one approach, one thing in your list of options as far as how a team needs to be enabled to choose their way of working.
What's that?
Can you see me on the Choose Your Wow board? Or?
Yeah.
So I'm ready to go.
And we can hear you too.
Hey, Mark. That was almost like a cameo appearance by Mark Lyons.
Yeah.
The next key concept that we cover in this module is who is involved in choosing your team's way of working. So it's the team. We want to make sure that teams are self-organizing, that they've got that shared ownership of their process. And by taking that ownership, we see that they're going to want to continually make improvements and experiment with different options to see what's going to work better or not work as well as what they were doing. And then finally, what other practices are part of evolving your team's way of working? So this is a situation that we come across quite a bit, right? If whatever worked for that team, then of course it will work for this team. Wrong. Some of the things that they selected might work very well. Potentially a lot of the things that they might have selected works very well, but all teams are different. All organizations are different. And that's one of the things that we focus on with Disciplined Agile being a toolkit. We've got a large body of knowledge that provides an opportunities for teams to be able to pick and choose, not only for how that team is structured, but the context that that team is getting ready to face. One best practice. And no, there is not one best practice. What we want to see is many patterns of good practices. So one of the things that you'll see is we're starting to go through this 5-step process for a team to make some initial decisions around their way of working. They're not locked into that. We should see regularly that they're experimenting with things. One of the things that I like to point out here from a quote perspective is a quote from the founder of the Toyota Motor Company. He would say, if you do not improve your process every day, you are a salary thief. Right? So that whether it's a very small improvement, you're thinking about something that you're doing that can help your team differently and sharing it with them. Right? Sometimes we figure out better ways of doing things and we don't see that it's shared across our team, let alone other teams. So many patterns of good practices. So while we might be blinded from seeing cause and effect, we can attend to some holistic patterns. So there are things that are going to be applicable, or sort of some of those truths that we would say, yes, most every team would be able to benefit from. Small batches work well for ourselves and others. We have a workshop on the foundations of lean that really gets into looking at small batches, how we can deliver value sooner, how we can get something out into the hands of our customers or users to get that validated feedback, that validated learning, and start getting a return on investment for what the organization has put into that functionality. Visibility of work avoids surprises, right? So we want transparency. We want to see what's going on, not only for the team members, but for anybody. Collaboration with other teams is critical. So we, at these larger organizations, are a complex adaptive system. What works well for one team might not work well for the other. What one team changes might have an impact on the other teams. Are we working as a team supporting a product that's part of a value stream that has multiple other products within it, right? So a value stream starting and ending with a customer might be affected by multiple teams' work in lots of different products. So collaboration is absolutely critical. And then finally, quality will affect everyone, right? We want to do quality in the work we're doing for our product. We want to make sure that there's quality across all the teams, quality for the organization. And when we don't have that, it can be a significant impact to others in the organization and all the other good work that's going on. So our 5-step process to take what I just talked about starts with analyzing the context. What context does the team face? So we're going to look at some of the more tactical scaling attributes that we are focusing on at the team level: team size, distribution, product scope, product complexity, schedule, process, stakeholders. Is this a brand new team that's being formed? Do the team members have experience in the business domain? Do they have relationships with stakeholders that they can draw upon to make sure we're going in the right direction? Do we have existing experience with an agile way of working? Do we have experience that's actually good experience? Are we taking more of a WAGIL approach, right? A waterfall agile approach, or more traditional, in thinking that we're actually taking a good way of working? How much technical complexity is there? Are we doing something new or novel? Are we introducing something that's going to impact our architecture? Right? How much technical risk do we have? These are all things that are going to change every time we initiate the next quantity of work we're getting ready to do. So again, one of the things we want to make sure is, as we're going through this 5-step process, we realize that we're doing it for this moment in time, but this is something we're regularly going to be revisiting for each new quantity of work we're getting ready to take on. So one of the things that we use for different teams with different contexts is a different way of working. So again, this is the tactical agility at scale that we start looking at. We start having a discussion around things like team size, our geographic and organizational distribution. What level of compliance do we need to be looking at? Our technical and domain complexity. So this will be an opportunity for the team to start taking a look at this, start taking a look at the potential scope of work they're getting ready to do, and make some decisions. This is one of the things, now we're getting into something that I've had an opportunity to talk about in another webinar, and I definitely go into a lot when I do training and in other types of presentations, is Disciplined Agile has multiple life cycles, right? That is so unique. We have an opportunity to take a look at our context, right? Not just our scope of work, but our team within our organization, and identify the best fit life cycle. So given the context we've uncovered, what's the best one that we should be using? And keep in mind that this is a starting point. We will make an initial decision, start with one of the life cycles. We might make some changes to that. And as we get into some of the examples of the life cycles, I'll cover that. But we have an opportunity every time we make a pass through one, we can take a look if we're ready to get value by moving to another. We can start with one, move to another, move back to the one we started with, all based on our context. How many of the DA life cycles do you remember? So, students, how many life cycles do we have?
6.
We have 6 life cycles at the delivery level, and then we also have the DA Flex life cycle that's up at the portfolio level. So absolutely, we have 6 life cycles in the context of this exercise we're going to take a look at. So which is this one?
Agile.
And it is the Agile life cycle. What can you tell me about this life cycle and why you were able to spot that so quickly?
Basically that as you work on iterations, each day is its own iteration of your bigger iteration.
Yes, so the Agile life cycle extends the Scrum's life cycle, which focuses on construction. So this is a life cycle that uses a time box construct. We're using iterations. We are going to take the amount of work we're going to do in our initial phase, inception, and we're going to decompose that into smaller batches that we're going to forecast or commit to doing in each one of these iterations. What life cycle is this one?
Is it Flex?
That would be a good choice since it's one of the 7, but it is not Flex. So I'll look to Mark and see if we can help Scott out. I think Scott might have been drifting off when we covered the life cycles yesterday.
I'm gonna say this is probably the lean life cycle.
It is the lean life cycle. And how were you able to spot that it was lean?
Well, I know that lean doesn't have iterations, or what Scrum calls sprints, and we pull work, and we have pools of work items, which is what I see here. I see 4 different pools of work items.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, in that, from just taking a quick look at both of these visuals, the lean life cycle does not use iterations. So it's another option. Now, one of the things that hopefully you can tell, and I'll just kind of go back to Agile, we've got inception, construction, transition. We have some of the lightweight milestones that are showing underneath here. It's part of the governance for this life cycle. We have the same thing with lean. So these are 2 very good options for teams new to an Agile way of working to consider, again, based on their context, based on how they're looking to best deliver the value. Another life cycle, how about this one?
Is this the continuous delivery Agile life cycle?
It is the continuous delivery Agile life cycle. We see that it has an iteration, right? So it's using that time box construct. We see that it has the construction phase, but we no longer see inception, and we no longer see transition. Transition at this point has really become more of just an activity, right? So we're still doing essentially what is in the transition phase. We've just gotten really good at doing deployments. We've got a lot of automation. And what we would normally use with this life cycle is each iteration we go through, we're going to be doing a deployment.
and yet we still have the same milestones, so we can still govern.
We can still govern it, absolutely. So we never lose focus for the governance aspects and how we still need to do that. The one thing also that I'm going to just click back for a moment to the lean life cycle is that what we also don't have when we use iterations is we no longer have those recurring practices, things like iteration planning, things like iteration review, iteration retrospective that we're doing on a regular basis. We're doing those now more on demand. Right? So we do need sometimes a little bit more experience and a little bit more maturity if we're looking to put in some new sizable enhancements, new capabilities, versus just having lots of smaller enhancement work. So how about this one?
Is that flex?
This one is not flex. We will be showing quite a bit of flex because flex is a new life cycle, and we'll get into that a little bit later in this module, a refresher of flex. This one is the lean continuous delivery, right? So again, we don't have iterations here, but you can see what we still are going to need to do is have those governance aspects, and we're going to be able to use this life cycle to very, very frequently deliver value on a regular basis.
I hear lots of hotshot agile teams bragging about putting stuff into production every day, delivering multiple times a day. Would this be the life cycle for that?
This would be the life cycle for that. So this is one, whether it's something on a second basis. I think Amazon is the leader. They're doing something like every 17, 18 seconds into production, or every few minutes, every few hours, every few days. This is one that we can deliver value on an extremely frequent basis. It requires not only a product and customers or users of that product to be able to take that level of change, right? We're normally not providing a lot of training and awareness to new functionality when we're using this because we're making updates very, very frequently. And it requires a certain level of process maturity. And again, just like the continuous delivery agile life cycle, this is going to require a lot of things to have been automated, right? So this is a more advanced life cycle. How about this life cycle?
Not flex?
Not flex. That would.
Is that the experiential?
You got it.
cycle?
This is the experimental life cycle, right? So this is where we can take a look at testing a hypothesis and make a decision. Do we have something we should move forward with? So this is more in taking a look at what we might want to do versus something like a minimum business increment that's got value that we know we want to deliver into our product.
And is it okay if you don't actually deliver something for a while when you're in this life cycle?
Yeah, this is intended to be for a very small period of time. We're looking to prove something. Are we able to take a look at an idea and see if we can actually productize it or monetize it? Do we need to do a proof of concept? So this life cycle can be used on its own to figure something out. This life cycle could potentially be used in the inception phase in one of our other life cycles to see what direction we should be going. Or this might be used very early on in the construction phase to make sure that we have an opportunity to figure out the right direction to go and be able to prove our architecture, right? So we can use this for lots of different reasons. And lastly, how about this life cycle?
I'm not even going to try.
This is our program life cycle. So this is when we get into having teams of teams, right? So this is one where we've got a large quantity of work. We're potentially needing to have more than one team participate in, and we have lots of options as far as how those teams can choose their own ways of working. So
Josh, on that last slide, do you mean that each team could be doing a different life cycle and still everybody's doing disciplined agile?
Yes, Louise, that's an excellent point, that each one of the teams is empowered to make their choices around their way of working. whether we're talking about practices that they'd be selecting as part of their process goals, or we're talking about the actual life cycle that they're using. So we could have more than one team using a very similar way of working, but we could also have a team within the program life cycle that is using something very different. Again, a different team selected life cycle. For instance, the lean life cycle versus the agile life cycle. So the next thing we're going to do is connect the dots. Given the team's context and life cycle, what goal diagrams should you consider first? What goal diagrams are the least relevant to the team's situation? So do you recall what the 3 phases of Disciplined Agile Delivery's full delivery life cycle are named?
Conception, construction, and transition.
You got it, Mark. So those are the 3. And as we move into our process goals that are for enabling at the team level, we have them organized currently by inception, construction, and transition, and then we have our ongoing goals. So once we take a look at which of these goals might be able to add the most value for our context, we're going to make some choices. So within the ones that we prioritize towards the top, we're going to take a look at the decision points and the options that we have and make some choices. So who remembers something else about process goals? Hopefully all of us, right? What is this part called?
The process goal?
That's the process goal. And the next?
Those are your decision points?
The decision point. And finally?
Your options.
Our options, right. So that is how we use and break down a process goal that's going to have multiple decision points and multiple options. We've got an ordered list if it has an arrow on it. So we want to be working towards the top or start as high as we can based on our context. We have bolded options that are a good starting point for teams with a relatively straightforward context. And we also have an unordered list of options if there isn't something from an ordered perspective. And then finally, the 5th step is guided continuous improvement, right? What we want to do is we want to use these Kaizen loops to be able to identify a problem, potential solution, try the solution, assess the effectiveness, adopt what works, abandon what doesn't, and share learnings. So some of the experiments will fail, but we still learn something. What we're focusing on is failing fast is fine, but we want to succeed earlier, which is obviously better. So the better we get at identifying potential solutions, the more we can improve faster. We can do this if we've got team members, specifically if we've got an Agile coach that has experience doing this. But oftentimes we don't. And that's where the body of knowledge of the Disciplined Agile Toolkit adds so much value, because we have a collection of practices that are known to work, and we have the opportunity to look at the trade-offs of where those might provide value for a team versus maybe not. So, quick refresher on our guided continuous improvement steps. Analyze the context, select the best fit life cycle, connect the dots, make some choices, get into guided continuous improvement. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get into our first exercise. And our first exercise is about an organization called Team Grocers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my share of the presentation materials, and I am going to begin a new share of our virtual platform, which today we're using one called Miro. So for all of you in attendance, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom out for a second and show you. I don't expect anybody to be able to see this in detail, but I do want to show that we've got on this canvas, just like what we would be doing in the physical world in a co-located situation, is what we have is we've got our exercises set up for this 5-step process. We've got a lot of the information also on this canvas. What you see here is all of the process goals that are in the reference guide that you get. We've got the visuals for each one of the life cycles. So the first thing that I'm going to do is zoom in, and I'm going to just quickly, in the interest of time, because we're accelerating the delivery of this module a bit, the context of Team Groceries. So part of a new online grocery delivery company. Team is not yet established. Small, 8 to 10 people, consisting of people that are part of the company, some new hires, and the plan is that we're going to sit next to each other in the same office. The process, being a startup, we don't really have a defined way of working. Some of the team members have experience with Scrum, although we're not saying that they know how to do Scrum effectively, or maybe they're doing a Scrum-like process. And we're open to new ideas in terms of our way of working going forward. So the product, the work seems pretty straightforward. We're building a website that'll give customers a new experience, shopping for groceries online and having them delivered. Some of the team members have e-commerce experience, but we have not built a product together before. And we're only going to be working on the new website, not other projects. Schedule, everyone in the company is excited to see this new product, and a deadline has been set for version 1, which is 8 weeks. CEO is a sponsor. CTO is also a key stakeholder. They both want frequent progress updates. They want to be kept in the loop. And finally, we're also talking to potential customers into consideration when building the new product. So what I'd like to do is just get into step number 1, right? So these are our tactical scaling attributes. And I would like you all to go ahead and get into the board. Yep, so we can see Scott's in there. And you guys go ahead in a minute and start discussing the context and the decisions you're going to be making. But I want to let everyone that's on the webinar kind of understand that they're in the board on their machines looking at this. I would have moved them into a breakout room so that they were able to have the conversation amongst themselves as a team versus being in the main room with all of us. So this is how we're able to do something very similar to what we do in a co-located format, but in a virtual live instruction. So you guys take it away as far as this exercise.
Okay, so I see Mark has joined the room, which is good. So I'll get in on it while everybody else is joining. So I think as far as organization distribution goes, I think it's pretty clear that we're a single division of a single company. So I'm going to move this dot, there we go, to here. And, and maybe it's here, I don't know. I'll have to work through that, but, we're a startup, so that's pretty small. I also think this is great. I get to work by myself and I can make all the decisions.
I'm here, I'm watching you.
Oh, okay. Well, I think this is a life critical thing.
I don't know.
I don't think that's life critical.
Why not?
Well, does the grocery store have a pharmacy? Because maybe I need my prescriptions in difficult times.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I'm thinking, right? So not only are we a grocery store, but we also sell pharmaceuticals, we sell liquor, wine, beer. So why wouldn't we want to be able to deliver that to everybody?
Okay.
Yeah. So we're life critical, I think.
I'm going to say domain complexity it's not, NASA, fairly straightforward for grocery store. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you looking at complexity just from the filler or also from the person doing the ordering?
Well, the complexity of the domain or the business rules, those kinds of things.
Yeah, seems pretty straightforward.
Well, but then again, too, if it was so straightforward, why isn't everybody else doing it? So I'm sort of tempted to say that it's somewhere between complex and very complex, because particularly if we're delivering pharmaceuticals, some of them need to be refrigerated, and there's time considerations. There's also the consideration of, are we delivering the right medicine to the right person, and then security. There's we're going to be we sell some interesting medications that could be a good target for people to attack our truck and steal all our stuff.
Okay,
and I guess if you deliver it to the wrong person, that could be life critical.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it's life critical for the delivery person too. If we're delivering into a rough neighborhood, that could be a problem.
Okay, cool. Moving on. I guess geographically distributed, they're a co-located team, right?
Yeah, we have one office.
Very straightforward there.
And we have a pretty small team size.
Right.
And technical complexity, it sounds, I think it's pretty straightforward. Is it somewhere in here? Like, are we, we're pretty much building everything from scratch, aren't we?
Sure.
Well, how are we going to process payments though?
Yeah, there might be some third-party apps we need to pull in.
Yeah, so are we really integrating things? Like, we're developing new stuff, but we're also integrating, I think, as well, right?
Yeah. Maybe with a vendor management system as an example.
Okay. So then maybe, is that a legacy solution then? Right? Or is it multi-platform? Maybe we're way out here.
All right.
So in the interest of time,
Okay.
what I will say is I'll just kind of accelerate a little bit of what would normally have unfolded. So as you can see, as a team, as an exercise, lots of discussion looking at the context. And as they're moving these things around on the spider chart, what they're gonna see is that the decisions that they make and the types of practices or potentially the life cycle that's gonna be chosen as we get into these outer bands is gonna have a bigger and bigger impact. So I'll take a look at life critical. This is one that actually comes up a lot in this exercise because of the pharmaceutical component. But could we potentially get something in an 8-week period? So what I normally see unfold in these exercises as we get over into the next part, which is our best fit life cycle, and then we get over into looking at the process goals and some of the decision points, the actual teams that are doing this, the teams of students then will oftentimes kind of go back very quickly and say, you know what, we're going to bring this down maybe to something around process because we're going to say what is out of scope is going to be alcohol and pharmaceutical for our initial relief. We're just going to focus on, the typical things in a grocery store that doesn't have that type of an impact. But as we move into that space, we're going to have to potentially look at the options we've chosen, things around maybe how we're capturing some of our requirements, some of the ways that we're being governed, how we're meeting, aspects of compliance, which would then be changing our way of working based on that new context we're focused on. As we move through this, the teams can actually make a selection. We use this box to kind of leave a bread trail of where they ultimately get to with the life cycle. So we just wanted to show how having exercises like this in all of the exercises that we do in a co-located, again, in-classroom perspective, have all been put into these virtualized platforms. And it is a great learning experience, just like we would see if we were doing it sitting next to each other, which we can't currently do in the current time period. And I know that we're within 2-3 minutes here of where we were going to end up with. I see there are things out in Q&A. I don't know if we want to take a little additional time, or I'd be happy to take the Q&A and within the next couple of days have a blog. I'll write a blog that actually covers anything that's out in the Q&A.
I think that's probably the best approach because people might be watching this recording and not maybe interested in these individual questions.
Right. Yeah. And so then the last thing I'm going to end with is there are already a number of virtual live instruction courses that are out on the Disciplined Agile Consortium website. We'll probably see additional ones that are being added in the coming weeks as we are mobilizing a lot of the other instructors to be able to enable them to do the same thing, again, using a very similar approach to not only the video, but also the virtual collaboration tool. It's just important to know you've got options that are out there, and you've got proven options that aren't just being bringing to market in a very accelerated way, which might not have the.
Can I ask a question I think some people would be interested in? You can manage breakout rooms using this technique?
Absolutely. So yes, whether it's the 4 of you, or we typically have 5 or 6 people, just like we would sitting around a table in a classroom, you get assigned to a breakout room. So I name my breakout rooms. I'll have Team Wow, Team Awesome, Team Pragmatic, and then I assign the students to those to that breakout room in that team. And each team has one of these boards set up. So we still do what's called a gallery walk. Teams do the exercises. We come back into the main room. I present my screen, and then a speaker for each team covers whatever the goal of the exercise was. Again, very similar to what we'd be doing in a co-located situation.
And you're sticking your head into the breakout rooms every so often to see what's
I
what.
vacillate back and forth, check in, listen to the dialogue that's going on, pick up on, again, just like I would be doing, circling a room and moving from table to table, I move back and forth from breakout room to breakout room to breakout room.
Very good. Look like fun.
It is fun. Actually, the gamification of this, some of the feedback that I've had over the years is just how great this is to be doing, and yeah, how much fun it is. And one last thing is that what the students also get is we can generate. So I generate PDFs of all of the virtual Canvas exercises. So you do also get a takeaway. Again, if we were doing this in class and we were using a highlighter or stickies or whatever the physical implementation of it is, we generate PDFs, and the students have the opportunity then to still have a takeaway of everything that they did.
Cool.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Josh, for this session. I think this has been incredibly enlightening, particularly for people who are new to virtual training, virtual instructor-led training like this. The opportunities are very interesting, and like we said, we've started doing this with with many of the Disciplined Agile instructors, and particularly yourself being one of the senior ones doing that. So thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll get on the Q&A. Wow, the Q&A has really jumped. That's fantastic. I'll get through those as quickly as possible. And then any other questions, by all means, my contact information will be on the presentation. And whether I can answer it or I direct you to one of the other partners that might have a little bit more expertise in a particular area, domain that you might be in, I can also help with that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for attending, your interest.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day, everyone.